job to do. You mad? Don't say that!
Have it the white of an eye from half a league away. Bigger they are, easier they are to target. Thing about slings, they hide well. You sure about that?
Wait, you're serious?
When will you ever learn?
Her Majesty knows what she's doing.
Fear not. We shall achieve our goal.
Meve now witnessed a sorry sight. A mass funeral for miners killed due to a tragic convergence of events. Their lead caskets lay upon the snow, wreaths of hop cones laid upon them in turn. The mourners waited for the diggers to finish. The digging was tough, for the ground was frozen. As the crunch and thud of picks and shovels continued, the dead miner's foreman scrambled onto a boulder to make a speech. Angry shouts and loud booing stopped him.
You knew it! You knew they'd smell vapors, but you ordered them to keep digging till it blew up in their faces!
Make the daily quota whatever the cost, eh?
You've blood on your nuts, whore son!
A mourner then picked up a chunk of frozen ground and threw it at the foreman. Blood spurted from the gash that appeared on his forehead. The first dirt chunk was followed by another, then by a rock, a brick. Meve realized that if she did not intervene, the foreman stood to be stoned to death. Something had to be done quickly. Meve saw this clearly. She spurred her mount and rode into the cemetery, pushing through the throng, then stopping before the foreman, the horse shielding him from further blows.
Calm yourselves! Silence! His guilt cannot be decided here. It must!
Before Meve could finish her plea, a large rock thrown from the crowd struck her bosom, nearly knocking her from her saddle. Upon seeing this, her Lyrian escort lowered spears and drew swords and rushed at the angry mourners.
Shino Kren!
Isbel cried out. Her hands began to radiate a fierce light that blinded both dwarves and Lyrians alike.
Have you lost your minds, all of you together? Not had your fill of misfortune yet? Lower your arms at once.
Whether the power of Isbel's magic or the force of her appeal had the greater effect is difficult to say for certain. Either way, both sides suddenly lost the desire to fight. Meve breathed a sigh of relief, aware that if not for Isbel's intervention, a great amount of blood would have been spilled at that cemetery. The Lyrians ascended the highest section of the Mahakam Range. Snow crunched under their boots, cold air stung their lungs, and the wind snapped at their cloaks. Meve wiped sweat from her brow and turned to Reynard.
There! By the rocks! We shall...
The rest of her words were drowned out by a powerful blast. The entire mountain rumbled with a low, vibrating roar. The sound grew louder, echoing off the rocks, splitting their ears. The Lyrians looked around, disoriented. Few heard Gabor's warning.
Dinna just stand there! Get behind a rock! Quick! Hurry!
Meve followed the dwarf's gaze and cried out in terror. The snow stuck to the mountainside had started to slide down the slope, sending up mists of icy dust. Before she could react, the white torrent knocked her to her knees, crushing her and smothering her into the ground. All she felt after that was all-encompassing cold and fear. Meve survived. The dwarves who ran to the Lyrians' rescue dug her out of the snow in time. Some of her soldiers were not so lucky. The Queen looked at their bodies, blue, frozen. Next to them lay dead horses, demolished wagons. The losses were enormous. Meve wiped her cheek. Her tears burned her frozen skin. Gabor spoke a while with the leader of the Mahakam Guard Patrol that had come to their rescue. His face was dour.
What? What have you learned?
I tell you all in good time. First, you need a warm drink, good victuals.
No, Gabor. I need to find out what in blazes happened here.
Well, it was an avalanche.
Of course it was an avalanche. I'm no fool. But what caused it? What was that noise?
Signal horns. Ours.
So you brought this snow down on us? Dwarves!
Well, aye, but, unawares.
Explain, in brief.
See, we clean our mount regularly. The way menfolk shovel snow off their roofs. Otherwise, the whole shebang would come tumbling down on our heads. When snow's gathered deep enough, we'd blast our horns to cause a controlled avalanche. Then we need to, sweep up a wee bit and the road's safe.
All well and good, but why did you decide to clean up right as I was passing through?
Wondering that myself. Schedule says next cleaning should have been a week from now. But someone asked the route to be cleared earlier.
Who?
Meve, I'll tell you. But first, promise you'll...
Who?
Hey. Ovain ep Clenvok, the Nilfgaardian emissary. Think it were meant as revenge for attacking their caravan.
The bastard. Reynard! Reynard!
Wait! Wait! I understand you're a wee bit upset, you've every right. But you'll never prove Ovain meant you harm. The sly weasel makes sure he didn't dirty his own paws.
I've no such scruples. I'll find him and kill him.
And then? How'd you tell that tale to Bruva? Meve, you're justly taught, but for the love, just this once, let it go. Or you'll leave Mahakam with near a scrap to show for it.
Moments later, scouts reported Ovain was camped to the north of the accident site. Meve had to decide how much she was willing to risk to get her revenge on the Imperial emissary.
There, milady,
whispered one of the scouts.
left of the path.
Meve squinted. The Nilfgaardians had taken shelter from the falling snow under a rocky outcropping. The smell of roasting meat wafted from their campfire, and echoes of laughter could be heard. The black-clad soldiers had reason to celebrate. They had just decimated Meve's company without even drawing their weapons. Meve's gaze caught something else. A metal container into which the Nilfgaardians tossed bones once they'd been gnawed clean. It looked strangely familiar. Only after a moment did the Queen understand it was an overturned Lyrian helmet dug out of the snowy grave of one of her men.
The Horsons.
Meve hissed.
They'll pay for this.
Meve! Asking you last time, keep a cool head.
Whispered Gabor.
You want vengeance? I get it. But think of the cost. If so much as a hair gets plucked from Ovain's head, Bruver will never forgive you. And you can kiss any hope of aid goodbye.
Silence followed. Finally to be broken by one of the scouts.
Milady, what's the order? Do we attack?
No,
said the Queen after long deliberation.
But milady, they...
I know what they did, and that I shall never forget nor forgive.
Said Meve, placing a hand on her scout's shoulder.
But breaking Dwarven law only plays into the Nilfgaardians' hand, causing us to lose allies and our chance for victory.
Maeve brushed the snow from her trousers and straightened her spine.
Avenge our comrades we shall. Not here, but in the fields of Lyria and Rivia.
The Lyrians resumed their march with heavy, beleaguered steps, their path still piled high with the snow brought down by the Nilfgaardians. While passing the mining settlement of Kolstock, Maeve heard the sounds of battle.
Hey-ho! Into the fray, lads!
Expecting she would see monsters swarming dwarves, the Queen set off at a gallop to the rescue. Her braid blew about in the wind like a banner, showing her men in which direction to attack. The dwarves she saw, however, were not engaged in a battle against Shaelmars and Barbigazes. No, they were going at one another. Luckily, no weapons had yet been drawn, but given that dwarves have hands the size of bread loaves, this did not necessarily mean there would be no deaths.
Oi, lads!
Roared Gabor Zigrin.
What's this foolishness? Calm the hell down, damn it!
Gabor's intervention proved successful. The dwarves limited themselves to verbal jousting. Maeve, who was no stranger to barrack room talk, nonetheless turned crimson at the dwarves' cursing. Piecing together the obscenities, Maeve concluded they were debating an old quarrel about the height of a certain mountain, or rather of the twin peaks atop it. One of them lay in the territory of Clan Dahlberg, while the other in the Hoogsland. Each family felt their peak was the highest, all measurements indicating the contrary being total fabrications.
Queen?
Started Gabor, nervously chewing his moustache.
They're asking if you, as yin impartial and a fair-minded wench to boot, wouldn't wish to settle their Egypt squabble once and for all?
Maeve knew well that this type of age-old quarrel could easily end in bloodshed, so she resolved to help. Representatives of the two clans gave her a strange mechanism she was to use to measure elevation. All that was left was for the Queen to button her coat up to the neck and scale the twin peaks.
Time to end this, Glycan.
When she and her force had travelled half the way to the first, she heard a long roar that made snow shelves detach and descend. Without waiting for her scouts to return with reports, Maeve drew her sword.
That bit the white of an eye from half a league away.
Eyes up, lads! They're flying straight for us!
Yes, I'm on it. Quite the clever little contraption they gave us. Work of a gnome, of course.
We must trust each other.
tell me you jest. What do you want of me?
Oh, sorry, turnips back for an encore.
No time for that!
Bigger they are, easier they are to target.
My pain serves a purpose.
Oh, could murder a pint.
Take those measurements and let's be gone from this place.
The Lyrians managed to repel the monsters and reach both peaks. Upon each, Meve ordered her men to take the measurements. While waiting, she admired the breathtaking view of the Mahakaman Massif. The dwarven contraption left no room for doubt. The peak within the Dahlberg clan territory was 2 feet higher than that witin Hoog territory. Gabor was clearly displeased with the results.
Oh, damn it all! I'd hoped you'd prove Brewer's clan was in the right. He'd have been content to see the Dahlbergs knocked down a peg or two, and, possibly, he'd have been more inclined to help you,
said the dwarf in frustration. Then, after a pause, he added,
Although, only you saw what the device showed, Queen. Perhaps you could, recalibrate the results a wee bit?
To lie would be simple, true.
said Meve.
Yet to forget the matter would be so much harder. No, Gabor, I shall tell the truth.
The Queen's tone made it clear the discussion was over. Gabor let the matter lie, and Meve's force began its descent down the mountainside.